point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 520th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. I'm having trouble with photographs here. There we go. Today is the 27th of April. We're starting the news for this show on the 20th of April, and so it'll be the 20th through the 26th. This is all material that can be found at my blog, geoharvey.com. It can also be downloaded or whatever at from a couple of links that are on this page if you happen to be watching on a computer. And Tom has things to say.
Well, I will start by the first item that we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say some of this is really worth reading.
Well, it is.
Okay.
It definitely is. Some of them are very long, but
yeah,
most of these articles are right on a button. They're good articles.
Yeah.
So articles that we should be paying attention to.
Yes, and I'm hitting the wrong buttons here and acting like I don't know what I'm doing, which is actually true, but you know, I don't want to act that way. Okay, our first item is from Common Dreams, and we have a picture of a wind turbine.
Looks like that to me.
It's what it looks like.
And it says, and I quote, UK report shows promise of 100% clean energy without nuclear power by 2050.
Yeah, a best case scenario in which the UK fully transitions to renewable energy with no nuclear generation would save over 100 billion pounds, which is something over $124 billion, achieving net zero by 2050 and produce 20% fewer carbon emissions. And this is according to analysis that they have done.
Well, we're working in the right direction anyhow.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, I'm not surprised about this thing about nuclear power because the cost of, well, NextEra Energy, which is by some metrics the largest utility in the United States, says that it is not putting any money into nuclear power in the next 10 years. And
well, it's a thing of the past now.
Yeah. It really is kind of a thing of the past. NextEra is putting all of its investments in energy, and this is the owner of 7 nuclear reactors, including Seabrook.
It's kind of complicated, and the biggest question, and it hasn't been answered, is what to do with the waste.
Yes, absolutely. What NextEra is doing is they're putting all of their investment into solar, wind, and batteries.
Well, as I've said on the show before, and in the future they're going to be saying things like, can you imagine in those days they used to pay for fuel?
Yes, well, they did. We do. So, should we move on?
Can't dance.
We have an item here from Clean Technica.
A picture of a Tesla Model Y.
That's what, yeah, and I just put it up so people can see it.
And it says, quote, Tesla reduces U.S. prices for the 6th time this year. What does that mean?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago we talked about their having reduced them for the 5th time. Now it's the 6th. On Tuesday, that is to say, that would be now a week ago last Tuesday.
Right.
Tesla reduced its U.S. The price U.S. customers will pay for certain models again. It is the 6th time this year that the company has done so. The big winners this time are customers who want to buy or lease the best-selling Tesla Model Y, which is the reason why we have a Tesla Model Y up. But other prices also fell.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it is. This is, you know, the reasons why they did this obviously are very complicated because they don't...
I can figure it out.
Yeah? You could not figure it out?
Why are they doing it?
Well, they want to be competitive with, I mean, there's a lot of companies that are coming into the market, and the people at GM and Ford have said that they're gonna take Tesla's place as the leader, and I think that Elon Musk doesn't want to do that. Want them to do that, so
I blame him.
he wants to have competitive prices. The other thing is, and this is something that I haven't seen in print, but I have thought about, in order to get to the lower prices, if they had just done the reduction in one swell foop, as they say, there would have been people who had paid the higher price and then discovered the next day that the price had been reduced, and they'd be very unhappy. So I think they wanted to step through this and have the price come down incrementally.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Our next
Right
item.
along.
Huh?
Moving right along.
Our next item is from CNN. We have a nice picture of a sunset here.
This is a
Or
pretty
storm, actually.
picture.
Yeah, it's a pretty picture. Okay.
Storm over the Baltic Sea.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at it a little longer.
Oh. What do you have for
Whoop.
What do you have for a title for the article?
I was just going to say that.
Oh, okay.
Fleet of Russian spy ships has been gathering intelligence in northern waters, Nordic waters.
Yes.
Investigation finds.
Yeah.
Why are they doing it?
Well, here we go. Let me read the synopsis. Russia has a fleet of ships in Nordic waters. Now, Nordic waters would be the Baltic Sea. It would be the Kattegat, which is the sea between Denmark and Sweden and Norway.
So we're talking about Norway, Sweden, and
Yeah.
Denmark.
Yeah.
We're talking about well, they call them the Nordic countries. Don't
That's
they?
right. A joint investigation by the public broadcasters of Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland suggests that they are spying as part of a program developing an ability to sabotage submarine cables and wind farms. Now,
Why do they want to do that?
well, because they've got this war on Ukraine, and the European countries have been punishing them for this.
Aha.
And you know, it's like these countries. When the Russians invaded Ukraine, I think it's kind of obvious that Vladimir Putin believed that he could dictate terms to the Europeans by saying, if you don't let us take over large parts of the Ukraine, at least we're going to stop supplying you with oil, gas, and fuel for nuclear reactors.
And they turned around and thumbed their noses at him.
They did indeed, and Russia has been suffering in this thing, really humiliating failures on the field. They've lost half of the land that they took over. They lost their biggest ship in that area, which was not the biggest ship, but it was the biggest ship in that area, which was called the Moskva, which means Moscow. It's a heavy cruiser, and they have been in serious trouble. And I think that what they're doing here is they're preparing to be able to destroy the cables that run from offshore wind turbines to land in order to reduce the amount of just in order to create havoc among the European countries, because the Europeans are not allowing them.
That'd work.
Huh?
That'd work.
Well, yeah, except that maybe it won't work. When you get involved in wars, you have to be prepared for things not working the way that you expect. And I think that Vladimir Putin failed to do that.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, it's from the time that this invasion of Ukraine started, he has been having a very hard time. You know, I mean, what I have read is that the initial tanks that invaded Ukraine went straight toward Kiev, and they had they had dress uniforms in them for the soldiers who were on them, so that they could go to Kiev and have a parade. And they got stopped. And they got stopped basically right on the edge of Kiev. And they got stopped by an army that included people who had just shown up and said, "Give me something to shoot with and show me how to use it."
Wow.
And you know, they
little grassroots support there, huh?
they had a little they had a little grassroots support, yes. Mm-hmm. And the people in Ukraine don't want to be put in the position that Vladimir Putin was planning on putting them into. And so, yeah. Okay, we should probably go on. What do you think?
Yeah, let's move on to Friday.
Okay, Friday, April 21st. And we have
island of Volcano.
Yeah, that's right, which tells you something about what the island is like. Right?
Nice beach. Yes.
You'll notice the color.
Yes.
You'll notice the color of the beach.
Well, it looks kind of brown to me.
It's almost black.
Yeah.
And these black beaches exist in various parts of the world where the beach is made up of stone that has eroded, and the stone is cooled off lava.
Oh, okay.
They have beaches like this in Hawaii also, but these beaches, the sand made from lava is very light and it washes away easily, so they don't last very long. Okay, this one is from Clean Technica. What do you have?
Scientists isolate microbes that eat carbon dioxide.
Interesting. In the warm waters of an Italian volcano, which happens to be on the island of Volcano, scientists found microbes that gobble up carbon dioxide, and this is a quote, astonishingly quickly, end quote. They told The Guardian, now they are hoping to put those microbes to work absorbing carbon dioxide as an efficient way of removing it from the atmosphere. And by the way, the microbes that they had in mind here are what are called cyanobacteria.
That suggests they're blue.
Yes, it does. They are what, you know, did you study biology when you were in high school or college?
In high school I did, not in college.
Well, I studied it in high school, and I remember that there were 5 different kinds of algae, according to the teacher. And one of them was blue-green algae.
Okay.
And blue-green algae is no longer called blue-green algae. It's called cyanobacteria.
Okay.
And the reason is because in every respect, aside from the fact that it has an ability to do photosynthesis, these blue-green algae are basically bacteria. And so they're called cyanobacteria now. And what they are doing in this case is they take the sunlight and they use it
to photosynthesize it.
Yeah, out of carbon dioxide.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, bacteria multiply very fast.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, in a best case scenario, fast multiplying bacteria can divide every 15 minutes.
Busy little guys, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And if I don't know how long this can go on before they weigh more than the rest of the Earth, but it's not many hours. It's one of the things that happens when things are exponential. Obviously, bacteria can't do that exponentially because they run out of food. But in this case, the food source is carbon dioxide. So they can they can take that carbon dioxide and they can turn it into organic molecules, which could be the source of something else. And in fact, I had a friend once who was, I haven't seen him for probably 50 years, but I had a friend who was, had a doctorate in organic chemistry, which I think is a frightening subject. It just goes on. You know, if seriously, people don't understand this. The English language has a huge vocabulary. It's like 400,000 words. It's bigger than the vocabularies of French, German, and Italian put together.
It is, huh?
Unless you decide you're going to include the names of organic compounds, in which case it's about 3 times the size of that.
Wow.
And you know, how do you know? Well, in order to know what an organic compound is, you have to know the rules about how the names are put together, because they follow pretty strict rules.
Okay.
But he said, if you knew the path, it's just a matter of knowing the path. You can go from any organic compound to any other. So you could make aspirin out of sugar if you just knew how to do it.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing here, is they're taking carbon dioxide instead of sugar or instead of other things that bacteria gobble up, and they're making it into the carbon dioxide into bacteria, and then from the bacteria you could produce a bunch of different kinds of chemicals that you might want to use, or you could just sequester it.
So the carbon dioxide that's in the air that's causing problems,
Yes.
is something edible.
To those guys, yes, that's correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then once it's been eaten, well, unless they're poisonous, and a lot of cyanobacteria are poisonous, but if these guys are not poisonous to everything, then something out there can eat them. And now you're starting to move up the food chain. But in addition to that, you can just take the bacteria and turn them into polypropylene, or whatever it is you want to use.
Something useful.
That's right. Okay.
Let's move along. We got a picture here of a personal rapid transit vehicle.
Yeah, a silly vehicle. There it is. That is called a. Wait a minute. My computer's. Here we go. That is called a Glideways electric pod. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, and it looks.
Well, we've talked about these before.
Yeah.
And they're intended to be driverless, but for the short term, they got drivers in them.
Well,
just I guess to see if something goes wrong.
In this case, why don't you read? This is from Clean Technica. Why don't you read the title?
San Jose chooses a network of anonymous personal rapid transit vehicles for airport connector route.
All right, only one thing, Tom. It's not anonymous, it's autonomous.
Did I say anonymous?
Yeah, you did. I think you did.
Autonomous is correct.
Yes. Okay, the city of San Jose granted authorization to develop a network of autonomous cars that will travel on their own dedicated 5.5-foot wide paths. The system will start with a 4-person with an electric pod transporting passengers between San Jose's airport and 2 city areas. Now that
makes sense. I mean, why do they need a driver?
To make people feel secure.
But other than that, I mean, people will get used to that.
I think that's the case, and the studies that have been done show that these vehicles are in fact safer than vehicles that have drivers.
They probably are. They got all sorts of devices to detect things that are going on in the roads besides just 2 eyes.
And one other thing, Tom, the AI device, which is going to be a computer, doesn't drink alcohol.
We can work on a way of figuring that.
Oh, you think so? It is not going to chat with somebody else over a cell phone or worse yet, try to read what's going on a smartphone while it's trying to drive.
I hear you.
It will not be eating a sub sandwich while it's trying to drive with its knees. A
lot of distractions.
There's a lot of things that people get into accidents over that an AI device would not. Yes, I realize.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I realize that these things are not something that's going to make a lot of people. I should say these things are going to make a lot of people feel insecure, including me. But I'm not putting those people down. But nevertheless, I have to accept the fact, as I understand it, that there's been a bunch of studies showing that they're safer than human beings. And this brings
I think
me,
you're right. I think you're absolutely right. They got a lot more sensors than just two eyes.
Yeah, and my mother, when I was learning to drive, when I was 16 years old in New Hampshire, said to me, George, you have to understand, if you're going to be safe on the road, there is only one way you can regard the people around you, and that is to believe that all of them, any of them or all of them, could be insane.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I've known people who were safe drivers, but, you know. Anyway, move on.
Can't dance. Got a nice picture of some icebergs.
We have, and this is, and you know, I got such a kick out of this picture. I went looking for a picture of an iceberg because I didn't have a picture with the article. A lot of articles have good pictures, but they're copyrighted, and I don't want to put them up because I don't want people to copy what I'm doing accidentally without checking. And this CNN article had pictures, but it was not. I wanted to find my own. And here I find an iceberg, and the picture was taken by a guy whose name was, or is, Mohammed Nasir. And I was just struck.
Which sounds like he's from a place that's far from icebergs.
that was my thought too. And I thought, that's kind of cool. That really is kind of cool. Anyway, so what do you have for a title for this article?
Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are melting rapidly and driving sea level rise.
Yeah.
Not good news.
No, it's not. This is from new satellite data. Combining data from 50 satellite surveys of Antarctica and Greenland, spanning the years 1992 to 2020, scientists of the Ice Sheet Mass Balance Intercomparison Exercise, that's the title of the exercise, found a 6-fold increase in ice sheet melting over the past 30 years. So the ice is melting 6 times as fast as it was 30 years ago.
By the way, if the ice sheet melts over a floating icicle, a floating ice cube, nothing happens.
Yes.
But if the ice melts over land, it raises sea level.
Yes. You know, we're moving much too slowly here, Tom. We're going to have to go through these articles quicker.
Well, we got a nice picture of a rufous hummingbird.
A rufous. It's not a ruby-throated hummingbird. It's a rufous hummingbird. Let me put it up. These are not the hummingbirds that live around here, which are the ruby-throated hummingbird.
Right. They're pretty birds.
It's a pretty bird. And the ruby-throated hummingbirds are brassy. I mean, I've had them so close to me that if they would stay still, I could just reach out and touch it. Feeding on a flower. I'm talking about 2 feet from my shoulder.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, this is from CNN.
Tiny creatures are losing their battle to survive. Here's what we can do to save them. Yes,
the rufous hummingbird lost 2/3 of its population since 1970, according to the 2022 State of Birds report. That is not the only species with such a decline. We can do things to help native species survive in an increasingly challenging world. And of course, if you go to the Energy Week files that are down lower on the TV, you can get to the CNN article and read about the things that have to be done.
I'll give you 3 quick answers.
Good.
One of the problems is glass collisions, and the solution is decals or bird-friendly glass.
Yeah.
The second one is pesticides.
Oh, man.
Habitat-poor lawns, and of course the solution is organic gardening.
Yeah.
Planting native vegetation, setting aside wild areas.
Right.
And the final one, this is an interesting one, invasive species. What did they mention? Cats. The solution is keep your cat indoors.
Well, yeah, the 2 largest the two most important bird killers in North America, from what I have read in many articles, are first feral cats and second domestic cats. Same species, but it is
cats and cats.
It's cats and cats. That's right. And you know, this is difficult for little birds. Okay, we should, as I said, move on.
Well, we have another picture of an iceberg.
Yeah, how did that happen? I don't know how that happened. I guess
that's the same iceberg, is it?
No, it isn't. I forgot that I'd put up an iceberg, just, you know, that I'd found an iceberg the previous day. So.
Well, let me tell you what the title is.
Okay.
The world just failed its annual health checkup.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. This is from CNN. The WMO, that is the World Meteorological Organization, their annual State of the Climate report, which was published the Friday ahead of Earth Day, paints a stark picture showing climate records being broken. Quote, "This is really a wake-up call that climate change isn't a future problem, it is a current problem, and we have to adapt as quickly as we can." And we will see more about this.
That's important.
Yeah, we will.
I'll say it, this is not a future problem, it's a current problem.
This is a current problem, and it is a problem that we have to face, and we will talk about this again before the end of the show, because this is a problem that it's bad. It's getting really bad now. And we've got everything that we need to do. We've got all of the technology that we need to stop it. What we need is the political will to stop it. And that, I think, is going to depend to some degree on people stopping fake news, that kind of thing. I'm starting to sound a little bit like Donald Trump here when I talk about fake news, but there is such a thing as fake news, and I think that certain people who complain about it also happen to be the sources of it, but nevertheless.
Well, let's move on. We got a picture of a condensed battery, which blows my mind because I don't know what the heck it is.
A what? Condensed battery. Well, you know, they describe this kind of poorly in the article itself.
Don't describe how big it is either. There's a guy in that picture, but I don't think they're that big.
The picture's an advertisement. The picture is an advertisement. It's an advertisement. It's on a screen behind him. It's an advertisement in Chinese with English subtitles. Okay, this is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
Condensed matter battery from CATL targets electric airplanes.
Okay. CATL, the world's largest EV lithium-ion battery maker, announced that it expects to start producing, quote, condensed matter, end quote, semi-solid batteries this year. I don't know what condensed matter means.
They are. I don't either.
I don't know what it means. The conclusion of this is the important thing. The company said the new batteries will have an energy density of 500 watt-hours per kilogram. Common EV batteries have 300 watt-hours per kilogram. So that's
almost double.
Yeah, well, it's an increase of 67%. And that means that using the same weight, you can go 65% farther.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're in a situation where a carefully designed aircraft might be able to carry people from New York to Chicago.
Yep.
So this is significant. Okay, as I said, we have to go on. Do you have more on that?
Now let's move on. We got Sunday, April 23rd coming right up.
That is right, and we have pictures of visitors at the Uppington Solar Power Complex. And this is from EWN. I don't remember what that is for. The Uppington Solar Complex is in South Africa, and one of those visitors, I think, is like the Prime Minister of, I don't know, I forget. Anyway, what do you got for a title?
Uppington Solar Power Complex lauded for positive social impact.
I think this is kind of important. South Africa's Uppington Solar Power Complex was lauded for its positive social impact on the communities around it. Scatec Solar had connected a 258 megawatt solar PV complex.
Now that's a quarter of a gigawatt already.
That is, and it's what, 25, it's 50 times the size. Is it 50 times? Yeah, I think it's 50 times the size of the one on the Brattleboro town dump. The complex, they connected this to the national grid in 2020. The Uppington Solar Power Complex consists of 3 solar PV plants. Now, the thing that's important about this is a 3-year-old complex, and what they're talking about is the positive effect it has had on the communities around it in the time since it was first connected.
Interesting.
So, anyway, we go on.
Moving right along, we got another picture of an amazing thing here.
An amazing thing.
A wind farm. Who'd have believed?
Yeah, and in that wind farm, you can see quite prominently a small substation.
Yep.
And just to the right of that substation, and much, much, much farther away, is a much bigger substation with what looks like a big mast sticking out of it.
Probably got a hotel involved.
Oh, they might. You know, I mean, how much money would you spend to be able to sleep on a substation in a wind farm for a night?
Well, I think these are the guys that service the turbines.
They probably are. Okay, which means they get paid to stay there. Okay, this is from Politico, and you have a title, I'll betcha.
The North Seas can be the world's biggest power plant.
Yeah.
Wow.
The statement by the prime ministers and other leaders of 8 nations of Western Europe says, quote, "We need offshore wind turbines, and we need a lot of them. We need them to reach our climate goals and to rid ourselves of Russian gas and ensuing a more secure and independent Europe." And
that's happening.
It's happening. And the Russians, Vladimir Putin did not anticipate the reaction of the European Union and the other European nations to his invasion of Ukraine. And the people in Europe realize that what we've got here is a schoolyard bully, and if you don't stand up to him, he's just going to bully more people. So that's the situation that they've got. Okay, I'm gonna move us along, Tom.
Why not? We got a picture of a Ford F-150 Lightning, and it says it's in snow, but it doesn't look like that to me.
Well, it's either snow or soap suds.
Snow all around it, huh?
It's either snow or soap suds.
There's snow all around it, but the car is on a highway.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, this is from Clean Technica.
Ford to build electric vehicles in Ontario rethinks its China strategy.
Yeah, this is okay. I'll just read this. Ford builds the Ford Edge and Lincoln Nautilus at its factory in Oakville, Ontario, a facility that had opened in 1953. That's almost as old as I am. Now Ford says it will invest $1.5 billion to transform the factory assembly complex into a Canadian hub for manufacturing electric vehicles and battery packs.
Well, Oakville is on Lake Ontario near Toronto.
Okay.
So there's a whole complex of this type of thing right there.
Yes. And one of the things that's happened here is that with the Inflation Reduction Act, the Inflation Reduction Act is designed to get Americans jobs. And they want the jobs to be not just for the United States, but for Mexico and Canada as well. And they're working in North America. And so what they want to do is reduce our dependence on China. And that in turn means that the Canadians have got kind of a competitive edge on the Chinese for manufacturing batteries, which is really important because the Chinese are the makers of a bunch of things that are important. Batteries are not the most important of the things that they really kind of had the list on. Electric buses, they're producing the vast majority of electric buses worldwide. Another thing is solar panels, and the Inflation Reduction Act is designed to get Americans working, making those things.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's essential in the long run.
Yeah. I think it's essential that we make the manufacture of renewable energy generating equipment as close to home as possible, and the
Absolutely.
and the renewable energy.
Do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not necessarily restricted to where the coal is.
Yeah, and by the way, and this is something we're going to talk about next week. We won't talk about it this week, but the amount of electricity produced by coal in the United States in the first 2 months of this year is down 32% from last year.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Well, it's a huge drop, though.
It is a big drop. There's no question about it. But coal is a thing of the past now. Let's face it.
Absolutely, it is. We're up to Monday, April 24th, with an article from CNN.
We got a nice picture of what they call a nuclear power plant.
Is that what that is? I'd been wondering about that for a long time.
It doesn't have to be nuclear because those are cooling towers.
They're cooling towers, but in this case, it is nuclear.
I'm sure it is.
And you can kind of tell that because of you don't see them too much, but on the left, you can see two domes.
Oh, you can see two domes, absolutely.
Yeah, and those are the
reactors.
Yeah. Okay, CNN, what do you got for a title?
No, nuclear power isn't the big bazooka climate fix you might think.
Yeah. Germany's exit from nuclear power doesn't single out as a quirky anomaly or a black sheep in a world otherwise enthusiastically embracing nuclear energy. It actually puts Germany in the global mainstream. Ever more countries are abandoning or scaling back nuclear power programs.
Well, it doesn't make sense anymore.
No, it doesn't. It's too expensive. And the information that we've got from NextEra Energy, which owns 7 nuclear power plants, and I've mentioned this before in this broadcast, they're putting 100% of their investment in the next 10 years into solar, wind, and batteries. This is
renewables.
from a presentation they gave their stockholders. Okay.
Another picture of a battery here.
Yeah, this is almost a blank screen, it looks like. They put a white battery against a white background.
White background.
So they did that just to confuse people.
Let me read the headline here.
Okay, do that.
Scania and Northvolt announced new battery for heavy-duty trucks.
That's the issue here. That is part of the issue. This is from Clean Technica, and I was kind of blown away when I saw this. Scania and heavy-duty truck manufacturer, Scania, the heavy truck manufacturer that is part of the Volkswagen Group, and Northvolt say they've teamed up to create a battery for heavy-duty electric trucks that will last as long as the vehicles themselves. And that means about 1.5 million kilometers, which is 930,000 miles.
The vehicles last that long?
Well, you know, these heavy-duty trucks are not exactly lightweight vehicles. They build them to last. They're expensive. They are expensive vehicles. Okay.
Well, I'm sure they are.
We have an item here from the Atlantic. Should we go straight to it?
Well, it looks like a grasshopper to me.
It looks like a grasshopper, possibly because it is.
How about that?
And if it looks like that grasshopper is exhaling and producing, you know, what looks like steam because it's a cold day or something, that's actually a cloud in the distance.
Aha.
Yeah. Anyway, this is from the Atlantic. So what do you have for a title?
Lush prairies could really be green deserts.
Yeah, and this is important. The synopsis says it's tough out there for hungry grasshopper on the Kansas prairie. Oh, there's plenty of grass to eat, but this century's grass isn't what it used to be. It's less nutritious. It is deficient in minerals, including sodium, potassium, and calcium. A major culprit is increased carbon dioxide levels. And believe me, if the grasshopper is having a hard time, so is the cow. And if the cow is having
Absolutely, so we are.
Yeah, so we are. And you know, when we saw that thing about birds, that rufous hummingbird declining
Yeah.
by 60% or whatever it was, if we don't do something about that, it's not going to be rufous hummingbird. It's going to be human being. So
I don't see as many different kinds of birds here in Brattleboro as I used to. It's been a long time since I've seen a Baltimore oriole.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me too. The thing that I tell people is that when I lived in Winchester, across the river, Winchester, New Hampshire,
Yeah.
I remember walking out of my grandmother's kitchen door and seeing 3 long lines of telephone wire. And all 3 of those was completely covered with swallows that were resting at that time of day. 20 some odd years later, I was living in that house with my children. And my daughter came in the same door and told me, "You've got to come and see all the birds." And I went out, and out of those 3 long lines of telephone wire, the first one was empty, the second was half full, the third one was empty. When I left and moved to Brattleboro in 2004, I hadn't seen a swallow in a long time. So what had been a very plentiful bird had disappeared.
How about that?
There was a reason why it disappeared, and the reason was because the mosquitoes they depended on had largely disappeared.
The mosquitoes are gone, huh?
Yeah. Now, did that happen because they were sprayed? No. I know what was going on to a large extent on that property. I don't believe those mosquitoes were sprayed. They disappeared because the weather had changed. That's what I think. But I'll tell you what else happened was when the mosquitoes disappeared, they were replaced in the environment by ticks. And it was just about the time
mosquitoes than ticks.
I'd rather have mosquitoes. Those mosquitoes were not carrying any diseases.
Yeah.
The ticks, oh, we've got problems. Okay, let's get on, okay?
Yep, we got a nice picture here again.
Yes, we do. This is the sunset or the sunrise. I don't know which.
It says it's the ocean, but it's actually a beach.
The beach is in the forefront. The ocean is in the distance. Okay, and this is from the
picture, though.
Yeah, it's a nice picture. This is from the BBC.
Recent rapid ocean warning alarms scientists.
This is really frightening.
This is significant.
This is significant. A major study highlights a worrying development. Over the last 15 years, the Earth's accumulated heat has increased by 50%. That's in 15 years, with most of the extra heat going into the oceans. In March, temperatures of the sea level off the east coast of North America were up by 13.8 degrees Celsius, which is almost 25 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's higher than the 1981 to 2011 average. And by the way, if you go and you try to do a conversion of 13.8 degrees Celsius, it will not convert it to 24.8 because they're assuming that you're talking about that as the actual temperature. But what they're talking about here is the difference in temperature. So 13.8 degrees Celsius translates into 24.8 degrees Fahrenheit. That means water that you might have gone into that might have been 55 degrees, which a lot of people would find really a bit too cool, would wind up being almost 80 degrees, which many people would find really a bit too warm.
I would say.
And the fish living in that water are not going to live long because it won't carry much oxygen. So this is a serious, serious problem. And it's
well, if the ocean gets warmer, the atmosphere gets warmer.
Yeah, everything.
And the atmosphere gets warmer, we get more storms.
Yes, that's right. We're going to have storms out of this, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen this year in the storms. Not the storms that develop, east of Cuba or something like that, but the storms that come up the coast, I think could get stronger rather than weaker as they go up the coast. That's something to worry about. Which
it hasn't been happening that way.
No, it hasn't been. Okay. Our next item is from The Guardian. We have a picture of a polluting plant here.
That's what it says.
That's what it says.
Like a dam breaking, experts hail a decision to let U.S. climate lawsuits advance.
Yeah.
This is good.
This is really kind of amazing when you consider how fearful some people have been of the decisions that are made by the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think some of that fear is justified, and historically we can point to things this court has done that people say, whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen. But in this case, the very conservative U.S. Supreme Court that we've got has not sided with the fossil fuels industry.
Which is interesting.
All right, let me read the synopsis. Without weighing in on the merits of the cases, the Supreme Court rebuffed an appeal by major oil companies that want to face litigation in federal courts rather than state courts that they see as more favorable to the plaintiffs. Now, one person representing a group of these plaintiffs said that the ruling felt like a dam breaking because they can go back to their states and the complaints are just going to move ahead. And we've been seeing these things where children, teenagers, whatever, have been taking the complaints to the state courts, and they have been really
getting more
stymied.
favorable results.
Yes, that's right. Okay, our next picture, unless you've got more to say about that.
Well, we got an interesting picture here. What are these funny-looking things?
I don't know. You think they make pizzas with those?
Square pizzas.
Square pizzas that don't have sauce dripping off them. This is from Clean Technica.
And for those of you who are wondering, that is a solar array.
Yeah, with solar panels. Each of those rectangular things is a solar panel.
And it looks like they are designed to rotate.
I can't, well, on one axis they might, yeah. That would make sense.
They follow the sun.
What do you have for a title?
U.S. Department of Energy expands support for community solar. Well,
Yeah.
that's news.
Yes, the U.S. Department of Energy recently announced that it is making solar energy investments aimed at reducing electrical bills and local pollution while supporting President Biden's ambitious goal of a 100% clean energy grid by 2035 and having net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Well, that's a desirable goal.
That's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
I'd like to see it even sooner than 2050.
Well, you are in agreement with a lot of people there, Tom, and including me. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, April 26th, and we have a picture of the president of Ukraine and some unidentified person in the press, a young woman, it looks like.
The guy on the left is President Zelensky,
That's correct.
and they are in the Donetsk region
Right.
in Ukraine.
That's right. This is from RTE, which, by the way, is a medium that is in Ireland.
Aha! I thought I recognized that.
Yeah.
Yes, right. You're absolutely right. It's the Irish national medium.
Yes. What do you have for a title?
Ukraine condemns Russian blackmail on the Chernobyl anniversary.
Yes. On the anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster, and that was the 26th, President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Russia is using nuclear power plants to blackmail the world. We have to do everything to prevent the terrorist state from using nuclear power stations to blackmail Ukraine and the world, he said. And honestly, I feel that he's almost certainly right here. The Russians have been aiming missiles to, the cruise missiles and so forth, other kinds of munitions, to land near nuclear power plants. And that includes the Zaporizhia power plant that their army has occupied. But
And they're all getting sick.
yeah, this The people
Soldiers are all getting sick.
the ones who went to Chernobyl did, yeah.
Yeah.
But this shows, I think, very clearly that we have a bullying state that is not concerned about human life and not concerned about war crimes.
Absolutely.
So now this next one, I'm going to put this up, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. It's a nice picture.
It's a nice picture. This is a conventionally growing citron tree. And one of the reasons I really like this is because my driveway right now, I don't drive, my landlady doesn't drive. We have a big driveway parking lot, and we use that for trees.
So you grow citrons.
We don't grow citrons, but they are citrus trees, and which
You grow oranges.
we have blood orange, Meyer lemon, Persian lime, Macrut lime, which is also called kaffir lime, and one of those two names is in some other language besides English considered a really big insult, but I forget which one. And then we also have Australian finger limes, which are very rare trees. And then we may have another kind. We've got one a tree that is unidentified. We have calamandans, which is another thing that looks like a very small orange, but it tastes like an orange, but it's as tart as a kumquat. And then in addition to that, we have 3 different cultivars of figs, and we have persimmons, and we have olives, and by the way, if you're going to grow olives, you got to be careful, because the squirrels are going to steal every single one of them.
They know what's good, huh?
Yeah. Okay, this is from the BBC. What do you have?
Italian farmers saving an ancient fruit with solar power.
Yeah. The citron of Calabria in southern Italy. Calabria is basically the toe of the boot.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
had almost died out from extreme weather and lack of economic value. But growing the crop under a canopy of solar powers, this blew me away. They're actually putting a canopy of solar powers over the trees. It has given the fruit a new lease on life. Their work in agrivoltaics has lessons for many climate-stressed crops.
Well, agrivoltaics makes an awful lot of sense.
Oh, it makes huge sense.
But 2 streams of income instead of 1.
Exactly, and you know the people
And
who
some things grow better under the shade.
tomatoes in one test outproduced the tomatoes growing in the sun by 100%. And your phone is beeping, so I'm afraid you're going to get cut off.
My phone is what?
Beeping, I can hear it.
I don't hear it.
Well, I hear something beeping. If you get cut off, Tom, I'm just going to continue the show. We've got
Yeah,
one.
I left the phone on all night, so it shouldn't shut
Okay.
off.
I'm
But if
gonna-
it does, you just finish the show yourself.
Right, I will do
We're
that.
almost over anyhow.
We are. So our next picture is a picture of a Caterpillar, the company, electric hauler.
That's a big truck.
Well, just look at the size of that thing. I mean, those guys in front of that are if I know about perspective, and if they went back to that wheel, their heads would be on the upper side of the rim of the wheel, not the outside of the wheel itself. That wheel is probably 9 or 10 feet tall. And if you look on the left, you can see the stairs that they would
They got to
climb.
climb upstairs to get to the
And they have
scab.
stairs that fold down, so they can make up a few 6 or 8 steps getting to the stairs that are. This is a big truck. What do you got for a title? It's from Clean Technica.
Caterpillar and NMG make amazing circular deal. You're going to tell us what NMG means.
I am. Mining company Nouveau Monde Granit Inc., INC, and Caterpillar Inc. have signed definitive agreements to provide zero exhaust emissions fleet supporting infrastructure and service for NMG's Metawire mine. Now, Metawire, I'm sorry. That mine is in Canada.
It's about 100 miles north of Montreal.
Thank you very much. I wasn't able to identify the place. I had forgotten. You got it. Caterpillar will supply heavy mining equipment to help NMG get to zero exhaust emissions. So we're seeing bigger and bigger vehicles being used for electric.
Well, we looked at one a couple of weeks ago of a mine, and the truck, it was one of those trucks, went uphill empty and downhill full, and it was making money.
Yes. And that's one way to do it. We've also seen trucks that could drive directly into underground mines. And
yes, we have.
That is a little bit strange because you have to deal with the exhaust if it's diesel.
You got to be able to breathe down there.
Yeah, and an electric truck makes a lot of sense for a thing like that.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, earlier in this broadcast, we have seen this blade-shaped battery with a high density that they can use for long distance and enabling aircraft. So,
well, there's a lot of smart people working on things that they look like they're promising, and one of them's batteries.
Absolutely. A lot of smart people working on batteries. So that's the last story, Tom.
Well, we had a pretty good show this week.
I think so. You're going to want to say goodbye to everybody. We're going to tell people to have a prodigiously effective week. That's our message for this week. And
y'all come back and see us now, you hear?
Tom says that as he is waving goodbye. And I don't know whether his cat is waving goodbye or not. He might be.
No, the cat's staring at me, but he's not waving.
Well, he's getting lazy in his old age.
Yeah.
You know what, Tom? I'm 76 years old. I know you're a couple of years older than that. But I read late last year that the life expectancy of a male child born in the United States today is 76 and 1 month, down because of COVID-19. And when I thought about that this last week, and I have to tell you, by the way, that we're going to record 2 hours late next week because I'm going to be coming back from Lebanon where I'm having a heart valve replacement, which sounds like it's about as inconvenient as a bad case of poison ivy. But what was I saying? What was I saying, Tom? Oh, yes. As I thought about that, I realized I'm beyond warranty.
How about that?
I got nothing to complain about. So, everybody have a lovely week. Be prodigiously effective. If I disappear forever, just remember I was out of warranty, so don't worry about it.